We finally made it to Geometry Chapter 2 and Inductive Reasoning. Now, Chapter 1 was giving us more of tools to understand how to use certain things in geometry. In Section 2.1, we are going to be learning about, well, basically in Chapter 2, we're going to be learning about the main things about geometry, which is logic and reasoning. Okay? For logic and reasoning, we have three basic words for Section 2.1. Conjecture, inductive reasoning, and counterexample. Now, I know you've done your vocabulary, but I'm going to just go over them real quick, so make sure you really understand. Conjecture is basically an educated guess using information. So, for example, you see someone crying and you assume that they're sad. That's your conjecture, okay? You have information of crying, but not necessarily all the background information, so the best thing you have is a guess, okay? According to your prior knowledge. Inductive reasoning is more of what they do in like CSI and solving crimes. You look at examples and look at clues and patterns. Well, inductive reasoning is more patterns, like this happened, this happened, this happened. So you can only conclude that this will happen. That is inductive reasoning. A counterexample would be, well, if this person, like, if you have two options, either this is true or this is true. And if one of them is false, then the other one has to be true, and that's a 10th. That's talking about counterexample. So either x is 7 or x is 8, but it cannot be both. It can't be one or the other, so you assume that if it's not 8, then it has to be 7. And if that doesn't make sense, we'll go into it more in depth later on. But basically, we're doing a lot of guessing. We're looking at a pattern, but we're guessing with we're having an educated guess. Please remember to do your vocabulary. And the next one we have here is examples. So when you hear the word conjecture, this is supposed to be C-O-N. I apologize. So when you see the term conjecture, it just basically means just come up using the patterns what would go next. So for example, our pattern is 2, 4, 12, 48, and 240. So you want to see how you get from one to the other so that we can come up with the next number. So conjecture could just be figure out the next number or figure out what comes next. So from 2 to 4, how do we get to 4? We can either add 2 or we can multiply by 2, right? How do we get from 4 to 12? Well, we can multiply by 3 or we can add 8. Okay? So let's do the addition on top. So we add 8 or multiply by 3. But we're not dividing. We can't. It doesn't subtract because the numbers get bigger. So from 12 to 48, we either add, 36, or we multiply by 4. So obviously, right now we don't see a pattern with the addition. But we do see a pattern with the multiplication. You multiply by 2, then 3, then 4. So your next guess, okay, would be to multiply by 5. So let's see. 48 times 5 is indeed 240. So in order for me to find the next one, 240, let me use my calculator back here. 240 times, since this is 5, this will have to be times 6. This gives us 1,440. So my pattern would be times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5, times 6. My conjecture would mean that my next number should be 1,440. The next one is for points L, M, and N. LM equals 20, MN equals 6, and LN equals 14. So make a conjecture and draw. So basically, with this information, what kind of things can we assume? We're trying to figure out what can we assume and what can we not assume. We know that this and this have N in common, so there's this N, okay? We know that LN is 14, and MN is 6. And if we add this together, what do we get? LM or ML, which is 20. So because I drew it, my conjecture basically means that both M, N, and L all are collinear. Collinear means all on the same line. So this is my conjecture. They're all collinear, and this is my drawing. Because 6 plus 14 is in fact 20, I can assume that this, like all 3 points, even though it doesn't tell me, but all 3 points lie on the same line. So this is my conjecture, and this is me drawing what my conjecture is saying. These are my conjectures. Either I'm stating the pattern, or I'm assuming something, you know, because there's other possibilities, but this would make the most sense. So try page 80, numbers 2 and 3, and just figure out if you can make your own conjectures. It might not be the same as other people's, but try to figure out from what pattern they give you, what exactly you can come up with, like the next drawing or the next pattern. Bring it back to class. Don't forget to do your vocabulary. Make sure to write all this down, and I will see you later.